Well, you're back in Rosewood for episode 3. Now, I have recorded episodes 1 and 2 before I released episode 1, and I was already part way through the production of this episode, so I am coming to you from the production seat. I just wanted to say a thank you and a shout out for all the tips and comments that you've made on episode 1. Anyways, as always, if it's your first time here, there should be a link above for episode number 1. It would be better to start there. But anyway, roll the intro. Rosewood. The place where my Project Zomboid story begins. You see, my knowledge of the game is minimal. I've played for 44 hours, and I would say a good 20 of these are sat in the main menu. This is the area we've picked to work in, and yes, it's not just the town. The biggest challenge we will face will be clearing the prison, but as of now, I am nowhere near ready. The objective is very simple: clear and secure Rosewood. Day 19, man, it feels good. I mean, you guys probably think it's nothing, but to me, this is twice as long as I've ever survived in Project Zomboid. So you may realise that things look a bit bigger. I've managed to somehow downscale to 1080p instead of the 4K for this video, as it seems most other players play like this. I'm unsure of it so far, but I'll give it a go. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. But on to today's story. Last episode, we started to secure the fire station and close off the backyard. And over the next few days, we're going to carry on this work. Day 19 started with me collecting logs at the front of the fire station. And after nearly killing myself collecting the first load, you guessed it, morning nap. And yes, I have now seen all your comments and I officially have the worst traits possible. Back up for more food, then back to chopping logs, second run complete, third run complete, fourth run complete, and the fifth run complete. Again, back to sleep for another nap. I did consider calling the series Sleeping Simulator, but my agent said it wouldn't get views, so I decided against it. Anyway, grabbed the saw, made the 2 big piles of planks, grabbed the nails and hammer, headed back outside, and began work on putting up the remaining frames. And just like that, by the end of day 19, all the frames were up and I can finally go to bed. For the third time today. I started day 20 wandering around the fire station in the dark. Yes, I hadn't realised that the electricity had turned off just yet. I decided to head out in the dark as I hadn't seen a Z in days. I put some wall frames on the front of the other garage door and I left my other car inside just in case I decided to work on mechanics in the future. I then added the wooden wall just so it makes that access completely covered from the outside. It was at this point I finally realised that the power was off after intensely clicking the light for about 10 seconds. Just to make sure, I checked again about an hour later. I then decided it was finally time to empty the car of all the loot we brought over from the first base. Filled up my backpack and my pockets, then dropped it all in the front entrance. After all of the exhausting work, it was time for the morning nap. Then I grabbed my axe, headed out to cut some more trees for the wall. This time, however, I was taking the car to hopefully speed things up, so I transcribed the journal just in case I faced some problems. I grabbed the car, headed back over towards the trees, somehow crashing it on the way, and got to work. After cutting down a few trees, the axe broke, so we filled the car and ran back to carry out some repairs. After finally finding 2 rolls of duct tape, we repaired the axe and it was back out to continue cutting. Once the car was full, I headed back, dropped off the logs, and went to bed ready for day 21. Day 21 started as yesterday did, in the dark. I grabbed my carpentry tools and began putting up the wall frames on the left hand side. I cut the logs I collected into more planks and finished the wall finally. I even pushed to start the work on the right side, but after a short period it was time for the early morning nap again. Once I was up, we decided to grab one of the wood axes from the loot pile and head back out to cut more logs for the right side. Again, taking the car this time to speed things up. Another full boot and back to the wall we went, then back for more logs, then back to base. That should be now enough logs to finish the right side. I grabbed the shotgun I dropped outside in episode 2, then headed back in for nap number 2 of the day. Little did I know that this was going to be us done for day 21, taking us into day 22. After rising just after midnight on day 22, again in complete darkness, I decided that I wanted to add a door to the right wall so I could come through the side if required. I dismantled one of the wall frames and added a door frame, then got to work adding the walls to all of the wall frames I'd put up on the right hand side. It took a couple of hours, but by 7 AM all the walls were done. I added a door to the door frame and the new JPGZ security system was done. I grabbed another morning nap, then started to plan out what was next for me. Knowing the power was out, I decided that getting a generator up and running at base was now the priority. But there were 2 problems with this. 1, I needed fuel to run the generator, and number 2, I needed a copy of how to use the generator's book. As I moved some loot from downstairs to upstairs, I decided tomorrow I will take the car and some gas cans, head back out to the old base, grab the generator, then head over to the Rosewood gas station and fill up all my gas cans. On day 24 I can stop by the bookstore, grab a copy of the generator book, then come home and set everything up. Let's just say a simple plan is never really a simple plan when it comes to me in this game. I spent the rest of the afternoon starting the first mechanics book, then headed back to bed ready to go on day 23. Day 23 will always be known as generator day. As planned, I dropped all the gas cans into the truck ready to go and collect my fuel. I decided to finish the mechanics books before heading out so I could get my early morning nap in, then it was time to hit the road. I headed to the old base first, grabbed the generator from the rear yard and loaded it into the back of the fire truck. I then headed to the high street. As we slowly drove down the main road, I was seeing group after group after group of Zeds. Not ideal for me with my fear of taking on the bigger groups right now. As I approached the gas station, I was sure there was no way of me jumping out to grab fuel. So on the fly, I decided to attempt luring the zombies across the road towards the woodland with the hope of driving back over and filling up a can. After spending 10 minutes pulling as many over as possible, weaving in and out as I went round in circles, I decided to give it a go. I headed back over the road, pulled up next to the gas pump, grabbed my gas can, and after attempting to fill it, that's when I realised the power is off. I need a generator. As I panicked, I had no other plans. It was back in the car and back down the high street. I spotted the bookstore on the way past, but for my fear of dealing with a large number of Zeds, I overruled stopping. Instead, I popped around the back to see if there was another way in. As I expected, the door was locked, so it was back to the car to get back to base. Time wasn't on my side due to my terrible traits, and I spent probably 3 hours trying to put my master plan into place today. All I achieved was picking up the generator and realising I needed the generator book before I even thought about getting more fuel from a gas station. As I arrived back at base, I knew there needed to be a new plan, but as for now, exhausted as I was, it was time for bed, ready for day 24. So after my terrible knowledge let me down on day 23, day 24 started with a new plan. The idea was to work house to house around Rosewood, attempting to find the how to use generators book. I grabbed my trusty crowbar, filled my bag with some basic supplies, and at 7 AM, away I went. If I needed to, I could sleep in one of the clear houses and just continue on till either my backpack was full or I found the book. We started with the houses at the back of the fire station, working door to door collecting any food or ammo I could find. Once the back row was clear, I thought it would be a good idea to work our way back round to the fire station, clearing any houses on the way. I first checked out this little shed in the rear yard, which obviously alerted the zombies locked in the house. Not to worry though, with just one outside, I could kill him then move into the house. I then heard the window break and thought that because I saw nothing coming out the window, I was safe. That's when I turned around and realised 4 of them had come out. This was, from what I can remember, the most I'd had to deal with at once, but I won't learn if I don't give it a go. Luckily this time I got the job done, and luckier for me, there were 2 inside that didn't come out with the rest. But after clearing the house of more food, no sign of the book. We headed home to empty our belongings and get some rest, ready for day 25. On day 25 we were up at 6 AM, ready to head back out for another day hunting the book. With our newly updated map, our focus today was on clearing the houses on this side of the road. Then anything else we could get done from there was a bonus. Again, my days never run as smooth as I would like them to, as you're about to see. Obviously the first house I visited today had an alarm on, causing me to shit myself and run off checking another nearby dwelling. After the alarm had stopped, my newfound confidence for blood was thriving. I headed straight back out to the house to loot it. Unfortunately, after killing the first 2 Zeds I found outside, it was time for a nap, so back in we went to get some sleep. After my nap, I headed straight back round to the house to loot up, finding myself a zombie out front and a handful more in the backyard. After looting the house, I found more food and a car key for the car outside, which unfortunately had no fuel, and on to the next house we went. I spent an hour hitting the garage door with my crowbar, as there was no window to get in, to only find a hammer inside of use. And here, presto, another house alarm. I haven't had one this entire playthrough, and now I get 2 in the past 3 houses. Back to the neighbouring house to sit and watch, quick nap, then back out. Cleared a handful of Zeds the alarm had alerted, and shock, no luck with the book. I jumped the fence and headed home. Just as I was about to go inside, I realised that 2 of the fence panels had fallen. For now it was a problem for tomorrow, as with my dark red moodles, it was time for bed, ready to go again on day 26. Nearly a 10-hour sleep on day 26, feeling refreshed apart from my inability to smoke again. Now I've got no more matches and I lost the lighter I found last episode pretty much straight after I found it. It was time to head back out for another day. A quick update to the map, and the focus now turns to the houses on the other side of the road from what we were on yesterday. I must also say that every time I come to this door it looks like someone's trying to bang through it, but it must just be a graphics thing because it just seems to be there all the time. As I stepped outside I remembered that last night there were 2 fence panels down, so it was time to investigate that first. Outside I found 2 Zeds which I thought I would quickly dispatch before heading back off. That's when it happened. My heart sank as I could see the health icon flickering. Upon finishing them off I checked the health status, and there it was, bitten. You see, this is where plans can change. You could see this as a blessing in disguise, and as much as I'd love to done the series without dying, that's what the bound journal was for. Not that I expected to die to 2 stationary Zeds, but here we are. I decided to drop everything. As I'm already dying, it's probably a good time to attempt the bookstore. If I can get over there, find the book, and get back here before I die, it would have all been worth it. Before I left, I patched up the 2 walls, then off I ran. I headed straight up the street where I ran into another small group of Zeds, this time dispatching of them. I then headed towards the church and round to the high street, but spotted a large group of around 10 Zeds. Now I was bitten, my confidence had been knocked, and there was no way with my current moodles I was taking them head on. I managed to lure one away from the pack, but decided to head into the church and around the pack to see if I could avoid them and get to the bookstore. There were 2 stragglers blocking my route and one stood out the front of the store, but my biggest worry was the group of about 20 just a little bit further up. I cleared the 2 stragglers and decided to go for it, luring the one out front down the alley and out of sight. Another follows, then I went for it. Wrong door. Tried the window, no luck. Finally I went for the door, and with 2 on my tail, I finally made it. I searched everywhere. Every bookcase was checked, and just as my luck was going today, there was everything apart from the one I was looking for. I travelled back to the fire station defeated, finally bitten after 26 days, and still no sign of the generator book. Maybe I'd not done enough in the first few weeks, maybe I'd missed some things in places, I'm unsure, and that will come from getting more hours under my belt. It's been a good run, and for now, it's time to say goodbye. I dropped whatever final bits I had back at base, dropped all the clothes that were worth keeping, and off I went into the night, luring as many zombies away from the station as possible. I walked all the way to the prison, and when we got there, it was over. So let's not dwell on the death. As I mentioned earlier, this was the reason behind the recovery journal. It was around this time, on this death, I went to bed with 14 views on the first video and felt like calling it a day. The next morning I woke up, got ready for work and saw the video was getting views. But more importantly, tips in the comments. So I could keep the integrity of the account and keep the same traits, but who wants to keep watching me have an early morning nap? Now it was time for a change, and when I got home from work that night, I hopped back online, looked at all your comments, and went with these new traits. I set myself as a veteran, and for positives, I took cat's eyes, dexterous, outdoor man, graceful, lucky, inconspicuous, and organised. For the negatives, high thirst, overweight, slow healer, prone to illness, smoker, weak stomach, slow reader, and Sunday driver. Anyway, now for a bit of comedy. I set up all my new traits, smash the play button, then this happens. Yes, dead again by a bunch of Zeds in fucking party hats. What are the chances? Obviously they're celebrating my success and jumped to the chance to be in the video. So after death number 2, we jump back into the action, spawning at the police station. Lucky for me, on what I think is day 27. After spawning on day 27, rejuvenated, my first order was to get back to base and read the recovery journal. Spawning in the police station was a blessing, and I quickly shot across the road and back inside. I grabbed the trusty baseball bat from episode 1 just in case there was any Zeds inside, then headed upstairs. I grabbed all my gear, but most importantly the journal, gathering back all of my skills from the last life. I was back, and this time I was committed to getting the power on. After completely gearing up, I checked the window and I was shocked to see a zombie outside. I was sure after the last death I dragged everything from this area away before I died. Now I think I realise what has happened later on, but for now I had a small problem lurking around. As I headed downstairs, I remembered a few days ago I spotted the spiked baseball bat in the crafting menu. So before heading out, I stuck some nails in the bat to give it a go for a bit more bang and a buck. I was feeling confident, so out I went. There were 3 of them, but after a few swift blows with a baseball bat, they were all gone. There were another 5 of them by the garage, again. They were gone. I found about 10 of them further down by the fence. New traits, new weapon, no problem. They were gone. I felt untouchable. Yesterday I would have been terrified, but now I am a new man. I headed out into the yard later that afternoon and I could hear more on the other side of the fence, so out I went again to clear. I felt like Morgan from The Walking Dead. I checked the 2 cars that were blocking the road right by the station for fuel, but there was nothing. As I've been swinging my bat a lot today, I decided it was the right time to try and clear as many as possible that were close by. And as I was close to the police station, I decided it was time to head in and loot up. I found matches in the desk before hearing a bang on the door. As I opened it, I took down the zombie and he dropped a kill. key. Now we all know where this leads to. I was in the armory. I found an MRS 788 rifle, loads of ammo, a sling and a stock, which I still have no idea how to attach it to the weapon. I checked the changing rooms and found myself the all-important fanny pack to carry my pills, smokes and matches. I obviously wore it on the front, and with the spoils I decided to head back to base and drop it off, creating the Table of Goodies 2.0. I checked on my recovery journal just to make sure I could still transcribe in it, and for some reason I couldn't. I thought maybe it's because that was for the previous character and this one I needed to create a new one. So for day 28 that would be our goal. I had the majority of it, the notebook, the glue and the thread. I just needed the leather strips. Surely a leather jacket couldn't be that hard to find, could it? On day 28 we had a little bit more crowd control to take care of. Just the two this morning. I'd checked around a few of the bodies in hopes of finding a leather jacket for the recovery journal, but I had no luck. I headed out to the houses over the back of the fire station as I expected it to be a bit quieter, but at this point I had come to the conclusion that the zombies had redistributed themselves following my death possibly. Anyway, you're probably thinking to yourselves, you don't need to create another journal, and I found that out after finding a leather jacket, making another journal, and still not being able to transcribe. So I went back to base and that's when the penny dropped. After everything I've been through, I just didn't have a pen. So I transcribed the journal, cleared another group of Zeds from the front of the base, and then made the conscious effort to move everything from the front hall to upstairs. I started work on the second carpentry book as I still needed level 4 for the water catchers, then headed off to bed for day 29. On day 29, now that I've found my recovery journal issue, I decided to continue on with the initial plan I had for looking for the generator book. With no crowd control to take care of, I headed straight out to continue where we left off. We bumped into a couple of locals on the way, but they were nothing to be worried about. In house 1 there was no book, but I did come across some red and white wine. Maybe something I'll try once we find this goddamn book. I also found more shotgun ammo in the closet and obviously more canned food for the stockpile back at base. More locals to take care of. It is a real shame because I had everything pretty clear before I died, but I'm also quite enjoying the combat as well. House number 2 of the day got us another skill point in sneaking, again more food, and there it was, the holy grail. How to use generators sat in a box of books. I mean, this is karma coming back around. When I was bitten, I was literally heading to these two houses to loot. I read the book straight away, then sprinted back home to put it in my bookcase. What a victory this was. Now my only issue was the fuel. I looked into the other gas station over to what I think is the west, but right now I don't have enough fuel in the car to make it there and back. The new plan was to head out on the road and collect as much fuel from cars as possible and fill mine. I spent the remainder of the evening in the dark reading some more carpentry too, then headed to bed ready for our journey on day 30. On day 30 we finished the second carpentry book before heading out about 11 AM. I gained another skill point in light-footed and was met by a train of zombies walking past the fire station. After dispatching a bunch more zombies, I headed to the police station car park and gained another skill point in maintenance, found some more ammo but I had no luck with fuel in either of the 3 cars. I headed back to the fire station, grabbed a gas can and a hammer, and it was time to leave. This time I would not return until I had a full can of fuel. I jumped the fence at the back and headed east around the residential areas that I'd not checked yet. I found it tough working with a one-handed weapon, nearly dying numerous times to a few Zeds. It looked like the lucky trait had really kicked in. I found 40% in one of the cars I'd siphoned gas from in episode 1, so that went straight into the gas can, and while being out on the road, my aim was to kill as many Zeds as possible to clear the area as I went through. As it got late, I decided to bunk down for a night in the survivor house. After a quick wash in the shower, I jumped on the sofa, ready for day 31. On day 30 we continued down the road reminiscing about completing our first 30 days in Project Zomboid. We'd finally arrived at the school and with a couple of Zeds outside and a number of cars in the car park, I was feeling lucky. I checked the step van to find no fuel, but we did find a key in the glove box. After realising the carry capacity was way higher than the fire truck and finding another 71% of fuel in the Nyala, I decided to fill the van with fuel so that I could use it to get back to base once I'd finished looting. After killing many zombies, I got around to the south side and saw no further vehicles and decided to turn back to the van. At this point I nearly had 1.5 cans of fuel, so it was time to move on. As I arrived back, for some reason I didn't have the key for the van. I was certain I picked it up earlier and I checked absolutely everywhere for it, but I could just not find it, so I had to siphon the fuel back out of the van and head home on foot. As I arrived back at home I dropped all the loot and obviously found the van keys in my backpack. I then headed outside and filled the fire truck up with a third of the fuel, grabbed the generator and parked it at the back of the fire station. Connected it up to the building in and filled it with fuel. As I headed back in, we'd done it to a certain extent. There were working lights, obviously to save fuel I went round turning them all off, but it had worked. There were no signs of zombie activity outside and I had a feeling of accomplishment. After 31 days, I finally connected the generator and we could finally see again. We may have died twice, but we were now cooking. As I headed to bed with Farming Book 1, as always, a thank you to you for taking the time to watch the episode. If you have enjoyed yourself, hit the like button below, it's good for the algorithm. And while you're there, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. And if you do know, where is the best place to put the generator at the fire station so you get all the lights on at once? I'm not sure, let me know in the comments below. Anyway, I'll see you back in Rosewood for episode 4 hopefully. Love you, bye.